Yo, 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 what's up, everybody? Thank you for tuning in to yet again another fantastic indie creator interview. It's your Caper Zeracone, and we're keeping it geekly with our two new guests. We have Mike Dean and Tim Radecki. We're here to break down Grave Brigade and everything in between, and sparking it up with Superbud as well. Welcome to the stream. How are you two doing?
Cody, what's up? I'm doing well. Mike, how are you?
Doing great. Thanks for having us, Cody.
Yeah, I'm doing fantastic as well. Happy Father's Day to all the dads out there. We are rocking it after some awesome, grilling. I had a full day of grilling and just relaxing. Did you two have any big plans today?
Tim, go ahead. Happy Father's Day to you, by the way.
Yeah, thank you. As the father of the two of us, it was a great day of doing a lot of nothing. I hung out with the kids and my wife Alyssa, and we had a great day just kind of hanging around the house. We made some good meals, and yeah, great day.
And then we have Mike the Bachelor over there.
Yeah, I'm a dad of cats, so and they didn't get me a card or anything. But
I seen your cat in the window. You came here like half an hour early. I'm still prepping for the interview. Oh crap! I hope he's okay waiting a few. And yeah. I think I seen your cat jump up in the window, so I'm like, all right, he's a cat dad. We're already off to a great start.
Yeah, I went over to my girlfriend's parents' place, spent Father's Day over there, and then we went to their pool, and I actually played some basketball and rolled my foot playing some 12-year-olds. So lesson learned there.
Oh my God, they duked you out.
Yeah, I still beat them though, sent them packing. But
you was gonna let them win, but after they injured the ankle, you're like, no, I have to save a little bit of this dignity. So we have you two. I got you down for Mike, Superbud, a BA in television and film, and Grave Brigade. Tim, Superbud as well, rapped Grave Brigade and some TV scripts as well. You guys have an outstanding history. I mean, where did it all begin for you guys? We'll start with Mike first.
We met in college, actually. I forget if we really got to know each other until sophomore year. But we went to film school together, and sophomore year is definitely when we started writing together. And it all started with a lot of Simpsons humor, a lot of jokes, and then as it went on, we just started doing more and more, went from sketch comedy to then we wrote a sitcom script together as an independent study. And then after college, we were roommates for a while. Writing the most, that's when we started doing comics.
That is so cool. Tim, you guys have been just writing from the start ever since?
Yeah, pretty much. So yeah, like Mike said, we met in college. I think we were both kind of trying to be the serious, artsy film writer, producer, director kind of vibe that was going on in those early 2000s. And then we started writing sketch comedy. It's kind of like a thing on the side for us. And we found we really had some chemistry there in our writing. So we started working on stuff from there. And then we jumped from the page to screenplays to comics kind of as just a whim on the side. We were both so passionate about comics, growing up being comics fans. I think we both have older brothers that got us into comics at a very early age. So it was always something that we loved. Even back in the day, we would hang out in college. One of the things we first started doing hanging out was we would drive to the comic shop. We went to a school in the middle of nowhere. So there was not a comic shop around. So Mike would make the half-hour drive over to the closest comic shop.
Mike was the one with the license?
Yeah, so I kept a ride. Found out he was into books, and I was like, okay, let's go do that. So that was our every Wednesday kind of thing. Mike and our other buddy, Mike O'Brien, the three of us would go. And, if we had a couple bucks, we could come out with a few comics and then just pass them around, hang out. So comics were always what we were into, but it was really never even a thought for us. It just seemed like a separate world, especially at that time, I guess the mid 2000s. There was that first big boom of Image, and other than that, there really wasn't a whole lot of comics that weren't your Marvel or DC going on, maybe the Dark Horse kind of stuff. So it seemed kind of hard to break in. And then I think with the later part of the 2000s, The Walking Dead blows up, and then all of a sudden there's a ton of books coming out of Image that seemed like they were not your superhero books. And that was what was appealing to us was there's an avenue for interesting creative storytelling and great characters that you can do here in this unique format, which was really cool. So we just did it as a whim. We had always kind of said to each other, one day we'll write a comic and then it'll just kind of be a little side project. And then we're okay, we'll just wait till we have a really good idea. And finally we got Superbud, which was the idea that was okay, this has to be a comic. It really doesn't work as well anywhere else. We got to start as a comic. And that was what kind of launched us. And then we had so much fun doing Superbud that we were like, okay, well, maybe this is something we can keep at, and that's where we kind of got to Great Brigade.
I love that. So which of you two were the big fans of Archie? I know in Superbud there was the mention of Archie in there, so
I don't think either of us actually were like big fans of Archie so much. We respected the roots of comics, and like we knew our character, like as you can tell from Superbud, like the characters all love comics, and you know, one of them works at a comic book store, and like so they've just read everything, and you know. And of course, like when that character's going through a breakup, he's just like looking for wisdom in all the wrong places.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
I loved it. I read it, and it felt like the perfect embodiment of like a 20-something-year-old stoner who doesn't know what they're doing with their life, who just wants to read comics. I mean, you guys nailed it. Even the part where he goes, this is all issue 1, so that's okay to talk about without with spoilers, right?
Yeah.
When he knocked on the door to win Stacy back, and she's like, "You reek like weed," and like you just smell like it. He like sprayed himself, like it's like you just become so nose blind to it. And I just love how you guys just nailed every humorous aspect of that. Even his friend who's like getting his life together is like, "Yo, you need to chill. I could smell this through the phone." Like,
yeah.
So like what inspired, the Superbud for you guys? Tim, we'll let you take the wheel on this one.
Oh yeah. So I mean, we were looking for a fun pitch and a good way to get into the comics. We just weren't sure what that was. And Mike actually came up with the pitch. And we just started really simple of like, well, what if there was this marijuana that gave you superpowers? And immediately I was like, I don't really want to do, and because I'm imagining like the Kevin Smith, like Batman style costumes, Bluntman and Chronic. And I was like, I don't really want to do that. But he was like, well, it'll be more of like a slow play of how they get their powers and like no tights, no costumes kind of thing. And I was like, okay, I can get behind that. And we just kind of dove into the idea a little bit further, and it was really interesting. And it was a way for us to blend the sort of humor that we were writing at the time, which was a lot of like sitcom style stuff, with that superhero thing that we loved so much. So it was like a perfect blending of those two genres for us, and it felt really unique and fresh at the time. It was a good way for us to do that kind of long form comic book storytelling that we were dying to do, but in a way that was affordable for us. We were coming from low budget filmmaking and web shows and that sort of thing, so there was no way for us to do the high budget effects of like somebody with super strength or flying and that kind of thing. But drawing it was certainly easier. So that was kind of like the impetus for the idea.
No, I love that. I love that a ton. Mike, can you give us a little bit about some of the creative team involved?
For Superbud, we worked with, so basically at the time I was doing camera work for Stan Lee's YouTube channel, and it would be a lot of like going to conventions and doing interviews with creators and artists. And, so I just started kind of like, if I saw someone that fit the style that Tim and I were discussing, I would just like write down the name or text it to Tim. And one of them was at New Orleans WizardCon or Wizard World. And I see this banner for Lottie.Inc. or Tim Lottie's art station, and he had a Star Wars character. So I got to see his style of a character I've seen before in live action. So I was like, oh, I see how this would kind of translate. And then we contacted him through Facebook, and we just took it from there. And he was amazing to work with, and still is awesome. He's a great friend. And we did the whole thing over just like the internet. The first time we met was at New York Comic Con after the book was finished.
I love how he casually just like starts off with like, I was filming for Stan Lee's YouTube channel. Like, what? Give us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, that was just a lucky break. A friend of mine was his personal assistant at the time.
That's so cool.
Actually, like a friend of a friend. And my friend was like, hey, I know you always have idolized Stan Lee. Would you want to come and film at New York Comic Con? And then I just kept getting asked back to do more shows. And it was a lot of fun. I mean, like, that's how I actually got hooked on conventions, too. I think Tim and our friend Mike O'Brien went to that same first New York Comic Con. And I bought it. We'd all three of us bought tickets, planning to go. And then I got asked if I could film, and I was just like, "All right," because I got to go and be next to my idol.
He's like, "Later, guys. I get this nice little pass here. See you on the upside."
Yeah.
So, Tim, I mean, how does this collaboration work between you two? You both are the co-writers. I mean, what does that process look like?
Yeah, I mean, and it's changed over the years too. I think that's important too. Like as we've gotten older and our circumstances have changed a little bit. Back in that time we created Superbud, we were living together, so we were working on it 24/7, which was really an awesome way to do it. Anytime we were back from work or whatever, we were partnering together and going, okay, let's figure this out. And lucky for us, I think Superbud came together very quickly, probably faster than any of the projects we'd worked on before, which was also a sign that we were like, I think this is something here that other people will get into because it came together so quickly for us. But typically, it's just one of us has an idea and we spitball that idea back and forth till we get something that we both understand what we're going for. And then we kind of build out from there. So we'll go from that concept to building the character together and kind of talking about, the ethos of that character, what makes that character tick, their wants, and then their subconscious wants, like their desires. And then after that, we kind of build an outline and then really refine it from that outline. Just keep adding layers and layers until we're ready to do a draft. And then most likely one of us will take a first draft that'll be pretty rough, and we'll pass that on to the next person. The next person will refine it. They'll pass it back. We'll work on it together, talk through and go, okay, this is what you had in yours. This is what I had in mine. Let's kind of find the middle ground there. Hopefully flesh it out a little bit further, maybe find some points that we can evolve to the next step, and then just kind of keep going there, passing that draft back and forth. Thankfully we're doing this right now with like the technology to be able to do that too. Like we work in Google Docs, so like we can both be sitting there. Like now I live in Philadelphia, Mike lives in North Jersey. We can both be typing in separate locations at the same time and see each other's work in real time. So easy to hop on the phone and be like, okay, let's work through, and we'll kind of talk through as we're working and both be able to see it, which is really an asset that we have now thanks to technology, which 20 years ago we wouldn't have been able to do.
So what's it look like when you two butt heads? I mean, does that ever happen?
Yeah, but usually, so I'm speaking for myself, this is the way I see it, but like usually whoever had the idea, we kind of trust the like, hey, if this is like in line with how you saw it, then I trust your judgment here. But we're never afraid to give each other, constructive criticism if like we don't think something works, or if we think something just like needs to be finessed. But we also both have like the like key in a lock moment where like when one of us is like, I just don't think it's working, that'll get us both thinking about it, and then usually it'll get us to start pitching new ideas, and then one of us will be like, that was it now works.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we also have a benefit, like coming from that film background. We had really great instructors at school, and one of the things we learned early on was how to critique work and like be raw with somebody, but emotionless in a way where like that criticism is constructive. It's not like personal, and I think that helped that we both came from that same place and that same background. Because I know Mike and I have each worked with different collaborators over the time, whether it's with film or scripts like this for comics or music even. And like kind of being able to put that ego to the side and going, okay, we're just working on what's the best idea here and refining that. I think that really works for us. And that's why we've been able to collaborate so long, because ultimately it is whoever has the best idea wins. So sometimes there is a little bit of a debate, and we'll kind of talk through it and weigh the pros and cons, and whoever's got the most effective point will usually win that debate. Or like Mike said, maybe the person who really like is passionate about that idea in the moment, going, okay, well, I trust you enough to say that you are really passionate about this, so I'll believe that this is the best idea because that's what you believe.
I love that. And having trust in your team, I mean, that's essential. And I'm sure you two living together had to play a big part in that, right? Like you guys have actually lived together. You know how each other operate and work. I mean, so that's almost like a little bit of a cheat code, it feels like, going into it as collaborators in the future. I mean, I had the chance to read Grave Brigade, and your work, it just seems so much more... what's the word I'm looking for? Violent, I guess, compared to a Superbud. I mean, we had a dude getting broken up with a stoner who loves reading comics, to these dudes taking on Nazis and all kinds of darkness. I mean, I don't want to spoil too much, but shoot, this was one hell of a read. Thank you guys both for this opportunity. So give us a little bit about what Grave Brigade is. Mike, if you want to go ahead and take the wheel.
Well, I would like to just kind of like touch on before. It was like, I think when we first started talking about Grave Brigade, I think I initially was like, oh, well, like, let's, push it in this, like, what are we doing with the characters here? And Tim like really brought it back to like, this has to be like gritty. This has to be pulpy. This has to be like, we're not going for like super likable, redeemable characters. And once I got behind that, it was like, oh, okay, I understand now, like the way we're approaching this. And so Great Brigade really, it comes from a love of the monster movies, and then also like the throwback to like, Sergeant Fury or, any of those kind of things. But yeah, so basically it's a group of misfit soldiers who are on essentially a suicide mission. None of them are expecting to come back. And they're fighting the occult forces of the Axis powers. And
so badass.
They're using black science, mix of experiments and the occult to bring about these monsters, which have always existed, but are now being weaponized. And then Graves, as you see in the first 2 pages, has his first experience with the supernatural before the squad is formed, so that he's chosen to lead them.
And I thought that was a perfect introduction as well. It was badass. I mean, Graves himself is such a badass character design. I love the big scar, just everything about him. Tim, I mean, give us a little bit about your side in this. I mean, what's up with Graves? Like, why is he the chosen one?
Yeah, great point. So, Graves to us was sort of like an amalgamation of all those classic pulpy, get down and dirty kind of characters. He's a little two-dimensional in that because it's just playing into this idea of a throwback comic to us. So we try to make him classic and into like that character that you'd experience from the quintessential pulp comic in a way. And for us, comes from really just going after Superbud. What's the next step for us? And we wanted a comic that was able to get right to the point right away. So we start sort of in medias res with these characters that are just thrown into the mission. You see them right away, being violent, like you mentioned in those first couple pages of the comic. So really important to us that we can just establish to the audience, this is this kind of comic where there's going to be a lot of violence. There's a lot of like mystery and intrigue with the supernatural element to it. A lot of like classic mad scientists and the occult and things like that, just kind of add a supernatural element to it. So we wanted to establish that stuff right away so we could just keep the ball rolling. It's not the kind of comic where we're going to have deep existential thoughts on war. It's really just like, here's a pulp character. They're going to, shoot a lot of people. They're going to kill a lot of monsters, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
It reminds me of Inglourious Bastards. Like, we're here to kill some Nazis. Like,
yes,
no
exactly.
story. We're just here to scalp some dudes. Everything about this was just so brutal. What made you guys want to go from a stoner comedy to something of this nature? It just seems like a complete 180 almost.
Definitely. I think a lot of it originally was just the slow pace of that first issue of Superbud, which, when you read the second and third, it picks up really fast. So it doesn't seem like it's all that slow. But for us, it took us over a year to make that, maybe like almost a year and a half to make that first issue, because we just didn't have the budget for it. We were paying a couple pages at a time, just trying to make it work. So for us, it was like, I would love to do a story where it just like jumps right in. There's a lot of characters in Superbud, which is part of the storytelling for it purposely, but we were like, it would be just nice to have some heroes versus villains and do a quick story that's a lot of action and just kind of satiate that other side of the comics that we loved. So while Superbud kind of passes off as this stoner comedy, there is a lot of storytelling that we're doing, and then characterization that's going to build over those last few issues. I think Great Brigade just is able to jump right in and be the pulpy action comic that we wanted it to be.
I love that. And we were talking backstage as well, like the Nazi Germany was well known for being really deep into this level of stuff, this occult stuff. And I mean, I think the USA even hired a bunch of scientists afterwards to continue it, like experiments and stuff. I mean, tying in all these awesome creatures. I don't want to spoil anything, but tying in all these awesome creatures was just such chef kiss. Mike, what was your thoughts on building this world together and using, the occult to tie it together?
I mean, honestly, I always have loved anything supernatural. Like when I was a kid, I was always watching these kind of monster movies with my brother. Tim and I both have older brothers that like exposed us to a lot of like this kind of stuff. I watched like Buffy, I watched, all these other shows. So I was just like all in right away when Tim pitched, dealing with monsters and the idea of like these people who are hunting them. But the real fun has been like coming up with some of the lore and borrowing it from things that already exist or expanding on just like really simple ideas. And then, being like, well, how's that going to play against a group of World War II soldiers versus like a group of teens in the woods,
No, that is so cool. I can't wait to see where this goes. I mean, you have like a whole timeline you can play with. There's some conspiracy theories that they were trying to build UFOs out in Antarctica. I mean, I can't wait. You guys, and this is issue, 1 of 5, if I'm not mistaken?
For the miniseries, or for the first part of it.
Ooh, so there could be much more.
Yeah. We actually, when we first were like outlining Grave Brigade, we saw it as something that could potentially play through other time periods as well.
That's so cool. That is so cool. Tim, who's the creative team involved on this outside of you guys as the writers?
Oh, yeah. So Deborah Lanciesi is our artist. She does all the line art. So great. I feel like she is one of the hidden talents of the comic industry. She is perfect person for us to work with on this. We went through a lot of artists we were looking at, and when we settled on Deb, perfect fit for us. She's great to communicate with, and like her secret talent is she is so fast at cranking out pages. I don't even want to let out how fast she was, because everybody's going to be wanting to work with her. So she was so great. Does really awesome pages, and it was sort of like the look of this classic pulp character that we wanted, but also very modern in a way. So I think she kind of hits that tone that we were going for, which is a throwback comic that feels modern at the same time. So it would be really easy to just do it in like a 1940s, 1950s style, but it's totally unique. It totally feels like 21st century, but with a little bit of a nod to that, which is exactly what we were looking for. And then we worked with Arthur Hesley with colors. Arthur worked with us on Superbud issue 3, really blew us away with that one. So great collaborator. We've been working with him a lot lately. So love to keep collaborating with him. He's doing an amazing job on it. And then the recent addition was we added Dave Lentz on to do letters for us. Mike and I lettered Superbud. We were planning on lettering Grave Brigade, but adding on a professional letterer really helped us like seal the professionalism on the look of this book. The art that we were getting looked so great that we really wanted a letterer who could handle that and bring something new and unique to that, which Dave definitely did.
Lettering can be hard, from what I understand.
It's a lot of fun to do, and it is helpful for Mike and I, being writers. We are able to kind of letter, and we can do like a rewrite to see, like, once we get the pages back, you might have had like this big giant speech planned and go, okay, well, maybe that doesn't fit, or this character's acting is so great in this scene, we can cut back on the dialogue that's maybe over explaining. So it is nice to do a pass like that. And I feel like we probably will do that again on other issues, and then just have, Dave keep going to do the professional version that you guys see, but us be able to letter our own version first, so that way we can kind of nail that final draft in a way.
No, that's really cool. And I think it's nice for you guys as writers to see, like, hey, maybe I put too many words in this script. Let me cut it back a little bit. It's always nice to hear that the writers are doing that extra step, because, I'm sure it saves your letterer some work, and I'm sure he appreciates that as well. So yeah. Let's go ahead, pull up the Kickstarter. Let's see what all this hype is about. Everyone watching, we're going to be dropping this link in chat. Check this out with us. We would love to see you back it. If you're unable to back, simply putting this on Facebook and Twitter is 100% free. Word of mouth costs you nothing. And this is an awesome book. I read it. I give it the Geekly seal of approval. This is phenomenal. And, I read this first, then Superbuds, and I'm like, wow, this is two different stories. I'm a sucker for graphic goriness like this, and it was so brutal. We have a Skunk Workshop. I was waiting on this link. Hey, thank you for joining us. So perfect time right there it is. Let me drop that right in chat. We are looking at Grave Brigade issue 1. When Nazis created monsters to win the war, we sent our deadliest soldiers to hunt them. Currently at $2,693 of a $2,400 goal. 39 backers and 24 days left to go. Congratulations on funding. Awesome. Yeah, awesome. This is your guys' second or third Kickstarter?
Third, I believe.
Third?
Yeah.
So how are you guys feeling about it so far? I mean, 6 days into it, already funded? I mean, that has to be a great feeling.
Excellent. we have great support. It really helped that we had the previous 2 Kickstarters also to build up a little bit of a fan base. And then, it's great that someone was asking me about it because we got funded in the first 24 hours. And I was like, the biggest feeling is relief, because when we did our first Kickstarter for Superbud issue 2, we hit our goal before the 30 days, but every day you're just like, okay, I gotta hit the grindstone here and really start marketing it and grassroots it. So it just feels great to know that everything after here is just a little bit of icing on the cake.
And it gives us an opportunity to do some stretch goals. I know Mike and I have had fun ideas for things that we could do, even before we were really building the campaign. Wouldn't it be cool to do this? So there'll be some fun stuff going on. We are so close to hitting our first goal, which would be to get a book plate. So Mike and I will sign book plates and we'll put those out.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, we started doing that a while ago, and not everybody likes signed issues. So to have a book plate that you can add in, so you can get the signature if you'd like, but it doesn't ruin the book if you don't want it on there.
We have Skunk saying Deb killed the line art. Yes, this art is just gorgeous. Right here we have our main man of the hour, bloodied up, blown up, it looks like, in head-to-head with the Grim Reaper. I thought this was such a strong introduction, and it really prepares you for just how insane this story is going to be. I feel right off the rip. I mean, this was a really powerful start to the story.
Thank you. Appreciate you saying that. Yeah, we needed it to start with that, so you get how the supernatural element of it, but I think also how gritty it's going to be. And originally, the earlier drafts, it starts with the next page, which is now page 3. So it's just a nice way for us to throw the audience immediately into the story without really wasting too many pages on a first issue, because page space in a first issue is so important. You really have to get so much across to the audience in terms of where the story's going in the future, plus the characters, their characterization amongst each other, and then the overall plot and theme. So just to be able to do that with 2 pages was a big help for us.
We see where that scar comes from too. I always love seeing that, the attention to detail. Mike, what did this collaboration look like with the artist? I mean, did you guys have your artists follow your script pretty much to the T, or did you let them kind of take the wheel when they needed to?
We Deb really did follow it to the T. We do always encourage the artists that if they have a cool idea to run with it, or to, if it's something that they want to run by us, to let us know. But, for this, it just kind of, we had spent so much time finessing these panels and descriptions. And that's another great part of our writing partnership, is that one of us might be focusing on the dialogue and the other one's focusing on the scene direction. And then when we do our second passes, maybe we flip that. Now one of us is, focusing more on what's the tone? This is feeling a little disjointed. But, by the time it got to Deb, we were very locked in on how we wanted each panel to go and how much would fit on a page. And she still gave us feedback here and there of I think this isn't going to leave enough room for the bubbles or the balloons. But yeah, Deb just killed it. I couldn't be happier with the work she did.
Absolutely.
Speaking of dialogue, there's 3 different languages. It looks like you have German, English, and then what is that, Latin? That's impressive.
Yeah, another tip of the hat to Dave for being able to pull that off cohesively with the lettering and make it unique, so you can kind of understand what's going on there.
Oh, that is impressive. So right off the rip, things are getting chaotic, and we see, some really ominous looking shadows. Even on the cover, we had an ominous looking creature. What made you guys start with the werewolves first?
So for us, it was always kind of harkening back to that classic monster movie, the black and white Universal style monsters. So I think we were going, okay, werewolf, mummy, Frankenstein's monster, vampire, that sort of vein, and the werewolf just seemed to be the classic way to start. It was a great way for us to start and throw the audience right into it. I think everybody kind of understands the concept of a werewolf pretty quickly. You don't need a lot of backstory for that. So it really served the purpose of the storytelling that we needed, which was just be able to throw you in so you could see these characters in action right away.
I love the dialogue too. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Mike.
I was just going to say, I think we also, like, in our talks, we're kind of like, let's put a creature in the first issue that is not going to have, like, dialogue or, like, you know, motivations that we have to, like, back up or spend too much time on. A werewolf is so, like, such a straightforward monster, and it just kind of, like, it's very easy to follow where it goes.
You know, there's a werewolf listening right now crying, just saying, I'm a deep person, Mike, believe in me. I love this dialogue right here. This was like such a perfect, you know, it felt like you guys captured that true, like, meathead army person vibe, I guess. I don't know exactly how to word it, but smells like barbecue back home. It's like, Carver, you're a sick dude. Like, just that dark humor. I felt like you guys just nailed it between these guys.
Appreciate you saying that. Yeah, we wanted to kind of show that, you know, rapport they have with each other, and maybe show a little bit of the difference with the characters, and also I think harken back to that kind of old school soldier mentality. You know, I think it's easy to, in the 21st century, to think of the characters speaking a certain way, but like, well, this is what they would have put into a comic script in the 1940s or 50s, but we just do it in an R-rated version.
So let's go ahead and check out some of these rewards. I also really love this retro cover. This is so cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah. Our idea is to do like a pulp retro cover for each issue. So hopefully, you know, if we can keep that going, we'll do issue 2, 3, 4, and 5 in a similar fashion with like a retro throwback cover.
So it looks like we got the digital issue one for just $5. Awesome price on that. We have the physical for just 10. You can get that first variant cover, which is going to be right here at 25. And then we have the Grave Brigade issue 1 retail bundle at 35. And this will get you, how many copies? Is this 5 copies?
5 copies, yeah.
So 5 copies for 35. Awesome price on that. You can get covers collection, covers A, B, and C for $40. So all 3 of the variant, or the 2 variants in the original regular cover for 40. And then the Grave Brigade issue 1 Monster Movie Edition. This thing looks so badass. Tell me a little bit about this. This thing looks awesome.
Go ahead, Tim.
Well, I'll start with Mike pitched doing, you know, a hardcover, and I was like, I don't think I've ever seen a hardcover for 24-page comic, Mike. I don't know if we could do that. But we did a little bit of digging, and we found a printer that does. And I was like, well, we gotta give it a try and see. And then we found Boogra, who did the illustration, who is so great. Loved all his work over, you know, the last year or so that I've seen his work. So reached out, and he was great to work with. So we got this classic looking cover for it. It's going to be a hardcover copy. It's going to be in black and white. Mike and I originally we were coming up with the idea. We thought we were going to do it as a black and white comic. But because the art was coming back with a modern feel, we wanted to do it in colors. That's where we sort of partnered with Arthur to come up with the color scheme that we use for the book, which is a muted color scheme, but it has like pops of color that you'll see, a little bit of like the Hellboy kind of reference that we use. But this one will be completely black and white to feel like an old school Universal Monsters movie. So you get the Lon Chaney vibes from it.
That's so cool. That is awesome. And I don't think I've ever heard of a hardcover 24 issue book either. I mean, that you guys might be making history here.
Yeah, and for us, it's a way to bring in an audience that maybe isn't your traditional comic reader or the comic Kickstarter backer. So it gave us, a nice tier, nice collected edition for somebody that wants a book that they can put on their bookshelf. They're not looking for a floppy, so it was a nice way to kind of serve that audience for us. It's
like perfect too, because you could do this for the next 4, and then when you get to the trade paper or the trade, hardcover back, you got it's right there. I mean, that would look gorgeous on a bookshelf.
That's the idea. Yeah, we can't wait to get to that. We're hoping we get to do that with the next few. You're right; it would look great.
Mike was like, I was just trying to come up with a hardcover. No, this was awesome. Then we have the kitchen sink bundle at $100, so you're gonna get everything mentioned, and then this awesome dog tag right here. Fantastic deal right there. So you get all 3 covers, the hardcover, and then the dog tags, and then that is it. So outstanding campaign here. I am loving these rewards, short, sweet, to the point. That hardcover is so badass. And the dog tag too. You know, you guys have some really awesome merch. I really love the story, and I can't wait to see what you guys are going to do for issue 2. The cliffhanger in issue 1, it was too much. I got to see what happens next.
Well, hopefully issue 2 will be out quickly. We actually have all the art done for it, so it's just a matter of, you know, doing another pass on, you know, a final pass for the lettering, and or for, you know, for a script for us, and then passing it off to a letterer. But we'll hopefully be able to hit the ground running with issue 2 soon. You know, the success so far of issue 1 for us on Kickstarter is a great sign for us that maybe there is an audience out there for this kind of stuff. So hopefully we'll get that up and running very soon.
It looked like you had a handful of people interested in the hardcover too. So, I mean, it looks like that took off just a few days into the campaign. So that looks like an awesome seller too. Like I said, this is like my 407th interview, and that's the first time I've ever seen that done.
Hey, you gotta start somewhere, right?
That's awesome. That is so awesome. So with that being said, for anyone who might be on the fence about backing this campaign, what would you guys like to say to them to kind of help push them over that hump? We'll start with you, Mike.
You know, the biggest thing I would say is, and I feel like Tim is the biggest response, or had the biggest voice in this, was you get a full story in issue 1. And we made a point of doing that for all 5 issues of the miniseries. You are not going to get a comic where you're like, okay, that was cool, but I don't feel like I really got more than like a 20% chunk of a story. So if you do pick up issue 1, if you do read issue 1, you're going to get a great little story, and then you'll get 4 more great little stories if you do choose to keep reading after.
Yeah, I would say if you love, you know, nonstop action, you love horror, maybe give this a shot. It's the combination of both those things. It's got the supernatural element to it. It's got the classic monsters, and it's got these gritty, pulpy, no-nonsense soldiers. So the combination of all 3 of those things is definitely what does it for Mike and I. Maybe that'll do it for you.
That is awesome. We have Skunk Workshop Shid already back. Laugh out loud. Thank you for the back. We always love seeing that on the show.
That's awesome.
And for anyone who is watching, if you guys aren't able to back, simply putting this on Facebook and Twitter helps just as much. Word of mouth is 100% free. And you're probably going to have a friend or family member who is going to love this. Now, Mike and Tim, I know this is your guys' first time on the show. I always love asking for a little bit of advice for anyone looking to get into creating comics themselves. So for anyone looking to start a script for the first time, what would you offer them, you know, just to kind of help them get on the right track and make sure they, you know, pump out something they're going to enjoy?
I would say do your research. That's something that Mike and I failed at it a little bit. We jumped in both feet on the ground, or 4 feet on the ground, with 2 writers, and we did the research after we had already written the first issue of Superbuds. So do your research ahead of time. There's lots of really great resources out there. Awesome books. Brian Bendis has a really great book to read. Scott McCloud's stuff is really great. Check out Jim Zub's website. That's where Mike and I learned so much. We were fortunate to see Jim at a couple panels year after year at New York Comic Con. We learned so much about like this kind of indie comic making from him, and he's got plenty of resources on his website. So start there. Learn story first too. If you want to jump in to be a writer, make sure that you understand story, not just for comics, but you know, story for all media. So that way you can kind of see how to structure a 3-act story. You know how to build character, plot and theme, all of those things. Make sure you know that groundwork first, and then have fun doing it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'll echo everything Tim said. Also, Kickstarter itself has a lot of good resources and tips and information that there probably was some when we did our first one, but they have become so much better at really helping the creators with their Kickstarter and their fundraising. And then also at New York Comic Con, Tim and I have gone to the Kickstarter panels multiple years and learned a lot from other creators who are being interviewed and being able to hear their thoughts and their experiences.
Mike, are you gonna get me some ice cream?
Yeah, I was about to say I need some ice cream after this.
I viewed myself. I was like, oh man, everyone's gonna just be thinking about ice cream now.
No, that is phenomenal advice. And so I'm curious, you guys did the research after writing Superbuds? Did that you guys wrote it and then smoked a little bit after?
We did plenty of that research beforehand. But yeah, we learned how to make a comic while doing it. And then we're like, okay, now what do we do with it? And then we were at a lot of these panels going, oh man, that's really great advice. I wish we had that a year and a half ago or 2 years ago. So get that advice before. That would be my advice now.
Or maybe save that heavy hitter for a later project. Get a couple books under your belt and then go for that heavy hitter. We got Skunk saying that's years of research. Oh, with the smoking. Got about 15. No big deal. I'm ready to write a couple series myself. So, guys, outside of creating, what are you consuming? I mean, what TV shows, movies, books, video games? Like, what are you guys doing?
Tim, go ahead.
Oh, I haven't been watching a whole lot. There's not a good answer for me. I'm terrible at this. So I'm trying to catch up on like all the Star Wars stuff now. I love that, but I'm behind. So
there's so much.
If you factor that in with Marvel, yeah, every month I feel like there's something new. So I'm catching up. I want to watch the new Spider-Man. That looks so awesome. I can't wait till I get an opportunity to go see that. So I know I'm gonna have to try to play hooky from work one day and go see it, I think. What about you, Mike?
Man, I'm trying to think. Well, actually, one thing I'll say, I'm not consuming it currently, but I got heavily into it when we were doing the rewrites on issues 1 to 5 and/or the Star Wars show, which has a lot to do with, like, for one thing, just like very like the seeds of a rebellion, like what you're not seeing as like the face of the rebellion, what's going on behind the scenes. And like I was drawing a lot of notes from that and inspiration when we were doing rewrites. And then what am I watching right now? I feel like I'm always just looking for something good supernatural. I don't feel like I've had one in a while. I actually just started rewatching Stranger Things while I like clean the house or fold laundry because that kind of scratches the itch for me.
Yeah, definitely.
No, that is awesome. Thank you both for swinging by. Everyone watching, right here is a link to check out this Kickstarter tonight. Like I said, I read it. I love issue 1, and I think you guys will too. And anytime you can see a bunch of Nazis get killed, that's always, just icing to the cake. So make it happen today, guys. Tim, Mike, thank you both for swinging by. This was an awesome opportunity, and I really appreciate it.
Yeah, Cody, thanks so much for having us on. What a great show. Appreciate the kind words about the comic and helping us get the word out. So cool of you to do that. And thanks, everybody, for tuning in to watch. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for all the support. Cody, this was a great interview. You're a lot of fun to talk to about all this.
I know, my head's going to be too big. I'm going to have to stay in the chair after the interview until my head shrinks back down so I can fit through doorways. Tim, once again, happy Father's Day. Happy Father's Day to you too, Mike. Cat Dad, fellow Cat Dad. My cat's sleeping underneath the desk. So I feel that as well. He's so big when he moves, he actually shakes the desk. He's a little chonker.
Catzilla.
We have a Skunk saying, these are my kind of guys. Great panel. Absolutely. So with that being said, it is time for us to wrap up. I hope you all have a lovely Sunday, but most importantly, guys, keep it geekly.